All right, welcome back to Health and Wellness with me, Shiko Kaitani. Thanks a lot for sticking with us. We're talking about epilepsy awareness and inclusion today, trying to understand this medical condition and, of course, dealing with the public fear and misunderstanding out there about what epilepsy really is. Well, today we're learning a lot from my panelists, Frederick Belchi, who is an epilepsy awareness activist, as well as Dr. Eddie Shengo, who is an epileptologist. Still learning how to pronounce that well, but we've just managed to demonstrate to you what first aid for seizures is all about, the do's and the don'ts should you come across someone having an epileptic attack. But in just a moment, we will be showing you how you can explain what epilepsy is to your children. Before we get to that, let's take a look at your feedback. Lots of Kenyans asking questions and even showing support for the likes of Frederick, whose sister is living with epilepsy. We've got Tom Odwano, who says, "Hi K24, I have seen 3 people suffering from epilepsy in our village. How come it's normally associated with witchcraft? And what causes mental retardation with people suffering from epilepsy?" I think the two of you can actually tackle that. You can tackle part B, Daktari, part A of that question. You can handle that. Jack from Kikuyu says, "For how long should you wait for the patient to recover from a seizure?" All right. We've got King Fidel here from Kisubu. What are the signs of partial epilepsy? Let's stop there for a second, Director, so that we can give our guests an opportunity to answer. All right. Misconceptions around epilepsy associated with witchcraft.
Exactly. So I think it's the background of how people have also come to learn and understand what epilepsy is and what epilepsy is not. For Christians, you go back to the Bible. One time, Jesus healed a person who was having epilepsy, but just standing, and when the shadow was cast over, he said, "The demon for epilepsy, go." So from that point, people also think that it's demon possession.
Oh gosh, and especially because of the jacking and the vigorous
and
movement,
the drama,
right?
and because I mean, people have headaches, have stomach aches, but they do not behave in certain ways.
But you know, on a serious note, even if it does sound funny, you can imagine someone living with epilepsy, born and raised in a rural area, how they are, you know, more or less elbowed out of community because of that, because someone is pointing, and you know, for them that's real, that's life.
Exactly.
Your neighbors staying away from you because they think you're possessed.
Exactly.
That's terrible. All right, so part B of that particular question,
mental retardation.
Epilepsy and mental retardation. Yes. Not all epilepsies cause mental retardation. But of course, if you have a lot of frequent seizures that are untreated, you know, you may end up having some mental retardation because, you know, every time you have a seizure, you know, your brain, for some reason, you know, you get tired, you may have some, say, oxygen that is not very, the brain lacks oxygen because you're having a seizure, and that sometimes can also make some brain cells you know, die and you end up having some mental retardation. That doesn't happen quite frequent, you know, but of course untreated epilepsy can cause mental retardation, and of course so many other reasons. Maybe just to add something, allow me, Shiko, just on first aid, you know, what Fred was mentioning. I think the most important thing is to get that person well and make sure that they are safe, you know. So as you said, putting things in the mouth, you know, can really limit your oxygen intake, because you know you block the airway by putting something in the mouth. So that's not recommended for that reason. And then number 2, also you can hurt somebody very badly, because you can even injure their dentures. If you know their teeth, if you put something like a spoon or something, and that's bad. You know, when you hurt your tongue, you get well. But if I choke you, you know,
anything can happen.
Yes.
So, good point there. Thank you, Dr. for that. How long does a seizure take? That was a question, I think, by Jack, who asked that. Maybe very quickly you can tackle that one, Fred.
Yeah, I think Dr. had mentioned that. So a seizure, depending on the type, sometimes it lasts seconds, but it cannot be prolonged more than 5 minutes for an episode. It might occur over time, but a single episode should not take more than 5 minutes.
Okay.
And maybe just to add on that, sometimes epilepsy we call status epilepticus, you know, which is a prolonged seizure episode. It can take even 30 minutes, 1 hour.
Wow.
That doesn't happen quite frequent again, but if it happens, it's very dangerous. It's a medical emergency, basically.
Okay.
So if it takes more than 3 minutes, you're having a patient with epileptic seizure, and they last 3 minutes, already start rushing them to hospital.
That's when you need to call help ASAP.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So that's very, very important. Even in first aid, as we mentioned, if they're not recovering, if the seizures are still continuing, or you know they're not waking up, you know, then you need to call for help and probably take them to hospital.
All right, very quickly, another question about the triggers and in terms of knowing the types of epilepsy. Still, can you actually be able to know which type of epilepsy the individual has, or it has to be a clinical diagnosis?
Yes, exactly. You can know it because of the symptoms that this person is presenting with. You can know that this is focal epilepsy or partial epilepsy rather, you know. Because, for instance, if you have abnormal sensation, if you have an abnormal feeling, you know, you have abnormal behaviors, most probably these are focal seizures. Of course, there are other partial seizures that presents with movements of just one hand, and you are semi-conscious, you know, you are aware of your surrounding, or you may not be aware, but, you know, you have not completely lost consciousness. I think what should be understood is that many seizures will present with convulsions, not necessarily partial. But convulsive seizures can be either the partial one or generalized. And the other type of seizures can also be generalized or partial or focal. We use focal nowadays. Allow me, Shiko, just to explain one thing on a very common epilepsy type, which Fred mentioned, the absence seizures. You know, it happens in children. It is very frequent. It can occur in maybe 100 times in a day. Very short-lived, sometimes even 2 seconds. So the children are branded as rude, or, you know, they're bad kids because they don't respond and they don't fall down. So you go like, Shiko, take me that spoon, and you don't hear the word spoon. So you bring a cup, and then somebody says like, you know, you might even be slapped by your mom, or at school also the kids get branded, even in their play fields, you know, nobody wants to play with them because people say they are slow, but it's because they're having those seizures many times. Yes.
And speaking of which, we now actually want to take the focus now to children. We want to share something with our viewers today. If your child has a classmate or a friend with epilepsy and you're not too sure how to explain this, take a look at this video that was actually produced by the Epilepsy Foundation. It really has some great points on what you can share with your kids. Take a look.
Hi, this is Elena. She loves to draw, play dress up with her friends, play with her dog, and oh yeah, she has epilepsy. Oh, what is epilepsy? Well, let's start with the brain. Your brain cells send electrical messages to your body to tell you to move, think, and do things. But when brain cells stop working the way they are supposed to and send too many electrical signals at one time, that's called a seizure. It's like a giant electrical storm. These seizures cause a change in how you see things, how you move, and what you feel. Epilepsy is when a person, like Elena, has one or more seizures over time. Her seizures only last a short while and can look different each time. Here's how it could look when someone is having a seizure. They might stare into space. They may look like they're chewing gum, but they're not. They might be fumbling as if they lost something. They could be wandering around like they are lost. Their whole body might shake. They might say things that don't make any sense. Now that you know what seizures look like, here's what you can do to help someone having a seizure. Stay calm and try to relax. If you have a watch or a phone, try to see how long the seizure lasts. If they fall on the ground, find something soft to rest the person's head on. This protects them from hurting themselves or others. Turn the person on one side so they don't choke. Tell other people around you that this person is having a seizure. Stay with the person until they feel better and ask how you can help. Continue to be calm and cool until the person can answer questions. Be a friend when the seizure is over. If you think you aren't big enough to help, go and find an adult. But wait, there are some things you should never do when someone is having a seizure. Never put anything in the person's mouth, even medicine. Never try to hold the person down. Never leave the person lying on their back. Never make fun of someone who just had a seizure. And remember, epilepsy is an electrical problem in the brain. You can't catch it like a cold, and it doesn't make people like Elena any different from you. Be sure not to make fun of someone with epilepsy. It's not nice, and it's definitely not cool. Having epilepsy is no different than anything else, and your friends shouldn't be treated any differently. If you see anyone being bullied or teased because of their epilepsy, or for any other reason, tell an adult. Always be there for your friend that's being bullied. And now you know all about epilepsy. Thanks to you, kids like Elena will be safer and happier. Let's all take care of each other. This is what being a good friend is all about.
Absolutely cute. I love it. That is a video known as Seizures and You Take Charge of the Storm, which is obviously part of the Epilepsy Foundation program for children. Obviously, you can tell that's for kindergarten age or below. That animation really helps kids understand what it's like for someone living with epilepsy. And just taking a look at some of the material that's out there, Fred, in terms of how much is out there to educate people, educating children in regards to epilepsy. What needs to be done? Are you content as an activist?
Not really. I think they still need to have more child-friendly messages in how we can be able to communicate what epilepsy is. And at some point, because again, we have an opportunity to sit at the National Epilepsy Board. We were trying to see how, even in our school curriculum, you see, people are taught about head, shoulders, knees, and toes. You can be taught about the stomach and the parts of the stomach. But I think if they can just introduce the brain in its basic form, so that children can get to understand what is inside their head. I do awareness in schools, and then sometimes I ask them, you know, epilepsy is caused by a seizure, by a damage of the brain. And I just make a joke. The brain is found on our knees. And the children go like, okay. and when you ask them a question like, who thinks that our brains are on our knees? And you'll have their hands up. So basic, just tell the children, this is the brain. This is what happens if your brain gets a damage or an injury. So many things can happen. Epilepsy can be one of them.
And Dr. Ari, just to add on to the discussion that we're having about education, awareness, and even the input, perhaps if you would say from the ministry in terms of research and management of epilepsy in this country, what more needs to be done in your opinion?
A lot needs to be done, Shiko. You know, one thing is that I think the government has not invested a lot in epilepsy. So you realize that in Kenya there are around 20 neurologists, and very few of them have interest in epilepsy. I'm an epileptologist because I specialized in epilepsy. And there are very few who have done that. I know one is the chair of the National Epilepsy Coordination Committee, who also committed a lot of hours, you know, just studying epilepsy. That takes like a year or two to do that, you know. So we need to invest more, you know, when it comes to knowledge on epilepsy. When it comes to research, I think we are doing very well. But basically on epidemiology, you know, just understanding the dynamics of epilepsy in terms of numbers, in terms of causes, in terms of the incidence and that, and something like that. We are not yet, we have not started, you know, and I think Cambridge is also doing that, on genetics. Now, I think that will make us understand more about epilepsy treatment and that kind of thing.
Okay.
Yes.
And, you know, things like seizure recognition and first aid certification is really a formal training that's even being offered by the Epilepsy Foundation. I mean, obviously in countries like the US on how to recognize seizures, how to respond, when to call for help and all that stuff. Back to you, Frederick, very quickly. Do we have even such opportunities here in Kenya that are going as far as helping people understand such things?
Yeah, sure. In terms of awareness, I guess that's what we are referring to. We have a national campaign. It's called Angaza Kifafa campaign, going to counties, training the doctors, because now we have few doctors who are in the front line and trying to help in treatment of epilepsy.
Yeah.
So the few that we have, we take them to train the doctors, and most importantly also train the community health workers.
Right.
These are the people that are closer to the people. When a seizure happens, they're the first people to know. When a kid is locked in the house because they have a seizure, they have had not an opportunity to go to school, they're the people that can tell you. So that information is going out there, and then the roadshow caravan that goes around to just now sensitize the public.
Right.
But we have so many other activities also that we are putting on the front line to really help people.
All right. And speaking about activities to put epilepsy in the front line, take a look at the T-shirt that Fred is actually wearing. Or rather wearing. It says Bauchi's Mount Kilimanjaro Challenge. Okay. Now you will not believe what these people are up to. Okay. I want to focus on these two gentlemen here. Hi, guys. And I'll wave at you. Hi. All right, so let's welcome these two gentlemen into studio. Let's start off with your names. Your name is?
My name is Hans.
And he is?
I'm Isaac.
Isaac.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. All right, so Hans, Karibu sana, and Isaac, welcome. You guys are on bikes because obviously there's a challenge coming up. And let Fred, are you going to give them the opportunity to explain to us?
And then they can explain. I know they are bikers,
yes,
so they don't do much of the talking sometimes. Yeah.
Okay, fine. So what's coming up?
Yeah. So what's coming up is we are taking a challenge. We are cycling. We are cycling all the way to Arusha.
Yeah.
For 4 days, through Isinya, Kajiado, Namanga, to Longido, to Arusha.
Yeah.
And then we rest for 2 days, and then we climb Mount Kilimanjaro for another 7 days. Yeah, so this challenge is meant to create awareness about epilepsy across Africa.
Yeah.
The bigger goal here is to try and see Africa is rich in so many languages. So how can we contextualize the information about epilepsy into our own African languages,
right,
so that people can get to understand what epilepsy is?
Wow, that is brilliant. All the way to Arusha from Nairobi. Yeah. Gentlemen, what inspired you to take part in this challenge?
For me, what inspired me was, firstly, I don't know if you know, but in 2018, Beuchi did a challenge.
Yes.
By himself.
Yes, which was to Mombasa.
Yes,
to Mombasa.
He walked from Nairobi to Mombasa by himself. So at that time, like, I didn't know he was doing it by himself. So when he told me about the next one, which is this year, I was like, let me support him because I don't want him to do it alone again. And I am there. Yeah, and then also in high school, I used to do St. John's training, so I was a first aider. Yeah. So I used to attend to quite a number of epileptic students, and I knew the first aid processes, and some of them were scary. Right. Mostly because people didn't know how to do first aid for them. So you'd find that we were being woken up in the middle of the night to attend to someone and then take them to hospital. Right. So from there, like it gave me a push to also join in, because I've done first aid.
So it's personal for you. This is personal for you.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay, so very quickly, what have you guys been doing in regards to get ready for this particular challenge? Because remember, they are cycling from here all the way to Arusha. I'm sure the training has been crazy. What has Frederick been putting you guys through?
The training has been interesting, fun, and adventurous. We've been training for a year. We've also been doing pre-challenges.
Yeah.
We did 100 kilometers in October, in September, sorry, from Ngong through Kiserian all the way to Isinya and back. So that was the first one.
Yeah.
And then from there on, we've been doing some mini challenges by ourselves.
Wow.
Yeah, so we've been riding bypass in and out of Nairobi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
All right, so if you see these individuals cycling for a cause, please stop, show them some support. Want to wish you guys all the best. Oh my gosh, Godspeed. And I'm just so impressed to see the lengths that they are going to support people living with epilepsy, and even just showing some love for your own sister, you know, Frederick, by actually coming up with some of these challenges. For someone who may not be able to join you on the road as you cycle to Arusha, how can we help?
Well, if you now check on all our social media platforms at Frederick Beuchi, at Angaza Kifafa na Beuchi, we have all the information there if it's in terms of support of any kind. I mean, we would really appreciate. And your prayers as well, because it's going to be long. We have a challenge of COVID. We are really trying to see how we can actually do it in a very safe way so that even the people that we are able to meet are also safe.
Right. Yeah. And the challenge begins today. Like after you leave the studio, you're on the road. Actually,
from studio here, we are heading to Ngong. We'll just have a moment to bond together and off we go.
Wow, fantastic stuff. Thank you so much. It was really good to meet the two of you. All the best. We'll see you on the road, and even after, you can tell us how the experience was, right?
Definitely, definitely. Thank you very much for having us.
All right, thank you too. And of course, before we say Kwaheri, let's take a look at some of the text messages that are already streaming in regards to the questions or even the support that you would like to actually show our guests today in studio. If my director can put some of those up, let's sample text messages. Okay, so even as they are working on that, yet again, you've just told us about prayers. Have you had any fundraising towards some of your challenges?
Yes, we have a GoFundMe platform that we are using. We also have a pay bill number that we are using for just trying to raise funds. Because at the end of the day, apart from just awareness, we have a list of about 100+ children that we are helping them to access medication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So as we say Kwaheri, and you know, and we sample our text messages before we go, I'd like you to discuss the impact of epilepsy on the individual and why it's so important not to shame individuals with this particular condition.
Well, maybe I go and then Daktari will mention something. One thing is that, you know, whether one has epilepsy or they don't have epilepsy, there's still the human side of them. Yeah. So they must be able to be taken with the same dignity like any other person. Their rights have to be protected. I mean, if they have a seizure at a workplace, that should not be an enough reason for them to be taken or to be dismissed. You see, because equal opportunities, just because all of us are human. Yeah. I mean, that should not surpass anything else. And I think if we view everyone with different challenges in such a way, then we have an opportunity to actually make this world a better place.
Okay. And for you, Daktari, your final words.
And I think epilepsy, not that I think, epilepsy is manageable. You know, even from Fred's experience, like what he explained about the sister, very difficult to treat epilepsy. Almost every 20 minutes they get a seizure. Now they are seizure free. It's manageable. It doesn't mean that I did magic to do that. You know, it's just the constant care that we give, the right medication for the right seizure type, tests that are relevant for that epilepsy type. Yeah. You know, that's the most important thing. So I really urge people to go to hospital. don't give up. Don't say that epilepsy is witchcraft, because it is not witchcraft. It is a brain condition.
Okay.
Very manageable with anti-epileptic drugs, depending on the type of epilepsy.
All right.
So if this drug doesn't work, the other one will definitely work.
Wow, definitely some hope. You're giving hope.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so even as we say Kwaheri, I do want to apologize because I understand we're out of time. We won't be getting a chance to sample more of your feedback. But thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate your company and, of course, the questions that came through. A very special thank you, obviously, to Dr. Eddie as well as Frederick for being with us today. We want to wish them all the best. And should you wish to get in touch with either of them, I invite you to follow me on my social media platforms, and I promise I'd be able to put you in touch. So, guys, Kwaheri. All right, gentlemen, bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so you can say Kwaheri to the audience. All the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you.